Well, the federal election is in high gear, of course, and so is the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our 2015 federal candidate interviews with those individuals seeking to be a member of Parliament for either Cambridge or the new federal riding of Kitchener South Hespeler. And here in the Chamber studio today is the Kitchener South Hespeler NDP candidate, Lauren Bruce. Lauren, how are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. You're looking great for a guy who's been out campaigning in 40 degree weather.
Yes, we were talking about the weather. It's pretty thick out there.
Yeah, it is. Although we're not going to complain because, in a few months, you know what you're going to be hearing the complaints about.
Sunny skies are better than
No, I like it. Lauren, so how many miles have you been putting on?
Well, in 2011, I was a federal candidate, and I went through 3 pairs of shoes. So I made sure I had 3 pairs going in, so I rotate my shoes. And,
oh, do you?
Yeah, so
that's a good
idea. I've only
blown
blown through 1 so far.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's amazing.
But it is 77 days, right?
And it's interesting, brand new riding.
Yeah.
You've got the Cambridge element, you've got the Kitchener element. Sometimes those of us in the business field or political field locally, we say, well, you can certainly cross lines there.
Actually, I find it's exciting, and people at the doors are seeing it as a huge opportunity because it's brand new. We don't have an incumbent, so it's wide open, and it's like a chance to make history and start fresh.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I think it's kind of neat from the Chamber's perspective. We love having 2 MPs. We're going to love having 2 MPPs. It just gives us more traction
Absolutely.
at the House, and
That's
we
right.
can get our message out through 2 people as opposed to 1.
That's right.
I think it's great.
And it's about having your voice in Ottawa, not Ottawa's voice here in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it. Speaking of that, let's get to some questions.
Okay. Right on.
2008, 2009, as we all know, was the worst economic time since the Great Depression. It was, what's interesting about that one was largely driven by the housing collapse in the U.S. and the automotive, consumer confidence, really. Yeah. Housing collapse happens, consumers aren't confident, they don't buy cars, automotive industry in big trouble. Now, we're experiencing a technical recession at this point. So technically no growth, or minor growth that doesn't really have an effect, but really to some degree being driven by the oil and gas. So it's a little bit different to, and maybe the problem with Canada to some degree is we're driven, we often talk about the fact that we maybe have a petrocurrency to some sort. But in any effect, your leader's suggesting that Stephen Harper's probably going to go down as the first prime minister to ever preside over 2 recessions. And yet, at the same time, your leader comes out and says, if I'm elected, there'll be no deficits, and all kinds of new programs, and here they are, he's laying them out every single day as we hear. But if we're in recession, what's the plan?
Well, that's a very complex question to say what's the plan, but I agree with you that to some extent we're very vulnerable to the energy sector for this recession right now, and I'm not convinced that we actually fully came out of the 2008 and 2009.
Well, yeah.
Right, and I was talking to people. I talk to people every single day. I work in a grocery store, and I see them struggling every single day. They're looking at a no-name margarine instead of a stick of butter.
Yeah.
Right, and those are the choices people are having to make every day, and I see it. And I think the bigger question that we have to ask is why are we so vulnerable by commodity prices? And I look at it and I say to myself, Canada for 50 years had a very diverse economy, whether it was resource development or manufacturing or IT or retail and whatnot. And we were able to survive or buffer ourselves from those outside influences a lot easier. And I don't think that the Harper government over the past 10 years has really stayed with that line of thinking. In other words, they focused on one, and I hear the term, all the eggs in one basket. And so when you do that, and I remember the comment he made about us becoming an energy superpower. That worried me because I thought to myself, well, what about our manufacturing sector? We've lost 400,000 jobs, and here in our area, it's particularly hard hit.
Yeah.
And so what have they been doing about that, right? And so what Tom has been saying all along in this election is looking at the economy as a whole.
Yeah.
And we need to help the manufacturing sector.
Yeah.
We need to help this sector,
No
and not
question.
You know, and when you say
I like the tech sector, but if we
Right.
become society of thinkers and not doers,
well,
then
but it's also that's a very volatile sector as well.
absolutely
Right? I mean, we all know BlackBerry and, you know, the ups and then the downs. So again, you have to look at it from a great big picture, a diverse picture. And when you say, how are we going to pay for it and whatnot, there's so many things within government. It's about priorities, right? And what Thomas said is that once we get out of this Harper regime, the first NDP budget will be balanced. If you look at our history, and not a lot of people know this because we've been brushed by the other parties, the NDP actually has a track record as the best fiscal record provincially. And this study was done by the Department of Finance. We also are a party that, you know, you remember Tommy Douglas?
Yep,
Famous Tommy
yep.
Douglas. He had 17 balanced budgets in a row and introduced universal health care. So it is possible.
yeah.
It's,
Well,
you know, it's like you said, it's about priorities.
well, it's with where he is in the polls.
Right.
If he wasn't committed to being able to do what he's saying he's going to
That's
do,
right.
then
That's right. And it'll-
he'd be crazy because he'd get
That's right.
elected and then not do it.
That's right. And you know, all these policies are costed out and
Yeah,
professional accruals come in.
Yeah.
When I think about wasteful spending, I was at the G20 demonstration in Toronto, and I thought to myself, here I am, downtown Toronto, and there's armed police, and it was just crazy. But we were with families and whatnot, and here's my government spending $1 billion for a meeting, you know, on fake lakes and and the like, and Mr. Harper comes out of the meeting and preaches austerity. Again, it's about priorities.
Yeah, it's no surprise to business that, you know, our economy has maybe stalled or slipped a little bit because, quite frankly, and as you said earlier, since 2008, 2009, we've been chugging along, not bustling along. There's no
Right.
question about it. However, there's some real issues that, you know, some Canadian companies would say have kind of held them back. Access to other markets, you know, so they're looking at and saying, global trade is really important to us, and so they're excited about the CETA agreement once it comes into play. They're excited about the Asia Pacific one when it comes to play. They're excited about the South Korean free trade agreement when it comes into play. But there's one that is troubling as well, and that is the fact that there's interprovincial trade barriers. And you, in your business, you would know that very, very well. Wineries in Niagara have difficulty getting it out to BC because people in Kelowna get mad.
Well, I mean, vice versa.
And vice versa. Oh,
Right.
yeah, for sure, because a lot of people like BC wines as well, who live in Niagara, oddly enough.
Right.
But you know, the point is we're Canada. If we can export to other countries, why can't we export to one another?
That sounds like a no-brainer to me.
I think so.
Yeah, and I understand, you know, the Niagara region needs to develop and harness their resources, same as the Okanagan Valley in BC.
Yeah.
But why can't we have that conversation and say, how do we promote your Niagara wines in BC? And you know what? We'll do the same thing. We'll promote the BC wines in Niagara.
We can trade people,
It's
right?
a
We can
no-brainer.
move people. We can move people.
Yeah.
Like you can live there if you want to without any infringement.
Speaking of CETA, you mentioned CETA.
Yes.
Canadian-European Trade Agreement. We haven't seen the fine details on that yet.
Yes.
I know the Conservatives have announced 3 times that it's a done deal, but we haven't seen the deal. We haven't seen the fine print on that.
Exactly.
So we have to really wait and see what are in the details of that.
Well, I think what's interesting about that agreement, to some respects, and then this is surface issues, it's a comprehensive economic trade agreement, which means it's not just exclusive to products.
Right.
It's products and services. So,
Yes.
so unlike a plumber being able to go and work in Alberta from Ontario, a plumber will be able to go and work from Ontario to Europe.
Somewhere, yes.
So, you know, I think those are good measures because it then allows companies here to bid on projects over there that require their expertise to
Right,
go over
but-
there and install it.
But you know, we need to see the devil's in the details.
Oh, yeah.
We need to see the fine print on that, and absolutely, you know, is it a two-way? You know, I always look at a trade deal as not free trade, but fair trade.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah,
it's a different word, but I mean, it's really,
interesting. I was somewhere where that was brought up. It was in a meeting actually about fair trade as opposed to free trade.
And you mentioned the TPP, the Trans-Pacific
Yep.
Partnership.
Yeah.
that one really concerns me. And from what I'm hearing, and it's all leaked information because it's really, really hush-hush in how they're doing this, and have been and I've been researching this for 4 or 5 years now, and the stuff that was coming out leaked out. And just recently they were talking about how Canada Post and the CBC are in jeopardy. The other huge issue that I see coming out of the TPP, potentially, and I haven't seen the details yet, is our pharmaceutical industry. And what will that do to us, right? And there's some huge things. We might lose the ability if we're talking about a national pharmacare program under the TPP, we might not be able to do it under those agreements. So
there's no question about it.
Again, it's not agreed to, and we haven't seen it in print. But we hear things leaked out and things are on the table, and we have to be really
we have to be cautious. We protect what we've got for sure.
Yeah.
And because these
and promote what we have.
Well, and these trade agreements are largely put in place to enhance our economy, not.
One would hope.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what they're supposed to be. Another issue facing small businesses is the skilled trade issue, and you probably know lots about that too. Governments tend to like to feed investments into the education, but when a business needs an employee or a skilled tradesperson, they need them today, not 2 or 3 years down the road when they graduate. The temporary foreign worker program isn't working. We need welders, steel fabricators, and truck drivers. A lot of people would say truck driver, they're not a skilled trade. And I tell them, well, jump in a 45-foot trailer and try and back it up. It's a pretty skilled trade.
And the long hours involved with that. Actually, it takes a lot.
It's a big skilled trade. And we have trucking companies in this area that would hire hundreds of truck drivers if they could get them.
Don't you see it every day?
Every day.
Every day you're driving around, on the back of the truck, or you'll see a billboard. Yep, hiring today.
They're all over the place. Every trucking company you go by, they have a sign on hiring.
Yep, get your AZ driver.
Yeah,
yep,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So we need these skills. We've known about this for 15, 20 years. We've been talking about the shortage of skilled trades. And yet nothing seems to happen. I like the investments. I don't mind in fact, we need to do more at the high school level to encourage parents to support their students that want to be a plumber or an electrician or somebody like that as well, because it's $95 an hour now for a plumber. It's not a bad trade to have.
And here we are. We have one of the most nationally renowned colleges.
Yeah.
In the country.
Oh, exactly. We get Conestoga College has.
My daughter's going there, by the way.
Oh, very good, very good. So we need to do something, but that gap between when those students come out into the working force. To when the need of the employer is, we need to be able to tap into foreign or immigrant workers, and bring them here, make them part of our. This whole country was built on immigrant workers.
Absolutely.
And
my parents immigrated in 56.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable that the companies now have so much trouble bringing people in who are skilled, and they've exhausted. The examples that I've heard, they've exhausted the marketing of, I've got this job and I'm looking for people and I'm paying $42 an hour, and they can't get a welder to come and weld for them. So what would an NDP government do about that?
We'll do something that Mr. Harper promised to do but never did, and that's invest in the Foreign Worker Credential Recognition Program. He promised $30 million to do that. So that when that individual immigrates over or comes to Canada, and we say, yeah, we actually do recognize your credentials, and you can begin work now to help those small businesses looking for those. So we've committed to put that $30 million program back in place.
Good.
That's a real easy answer to
it
a bigger question.
It is, and
again,
and I understand I understand we have Canadians that are unemployed. But you know what? I can take you to a dozen small businesses right now who have said, Greg, I put out an ad, I get no response.
Absolutely.
Simply because the skill isn't there that I need.
And we know that businesses will hire locally.
I had a guy advertising for a stainless steel welder.
Yeah.
He had 22 applicants. One was a welder. 21 of them had never held a welding stick in their life.
Yeah.
And they applied for the job. So he said, well, 21 of them, what about the one guy? The one guy, he could hire him. He hires him. 2 weeks later, he's gone to the next place that needs a welder.
Oh, really?
For more money. And he was paying $32 an hour. So what the guy was getting, he says, like, how high do I go?
You're in demand.
It's a big question, but it needs to be
That's
answered.
right, and we need to recognize those credentials.
Doing business in Ontario is really expensive. Hydro costs, you must know that. You hear that probably all the time. You see it in your own hydro bill at home. Carbon tax credit or carbon tax or credit system is coming to Ontario. The Ontario Retirement Pension Plan is being shoved down small businesses' throat. All of these costs, and from small businesses' perspective, they're saying, well, I don't see any details in here how this is going to solve the issue they're talking about.
Right.
Largely when it comes to the ORPP, the Ontario Retirement Pension Plan, small business says, wait a minute, this is an educational issue. You should be teaching financial literacy to these kids coming out of school so that they know when they get into the workforce, they got to start planning for the future. And I had one individual sitting around the table with the minister, Minister Hunter, who actually said, look, I pay my employees top buck. I have to. Otherwise, they get stolen by the big guys.
Right.
So I pay them top buck. If they can't save some of that, I don't know why it's my fault.
Right.
And so, I'm already into the CPP. The CPP is a good program. Like, let's do something there. So, from that perspective, your leader really never committed one way or the other. I think he's made some announcements that, somebody said today or yesterday or whenever that, he would work with the provinces on this pension program. But, he's pretty committed to looking at the CPP from my understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was lobbying the federal government before I became a candidate in 2010 about the CPP, because that is the way to go.
It's an established mechanism. It's already in place. And
That's
you know
right.
what?
It's costed out. It's at least for 75 years.
It works relatively well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's a big enough nut. I've told this to people. People say, "Oh, well, the CPP won't be there when I get there." I say, "Well, if you're going to live to 110, then maybe it might not be." But along the way, everybody, you make little corrections and little jigs, and you can keep it going.
And even small percentages and adjustments along the way, like you suggested, it works out to like a cup of coffee a week.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
because it's such a big animal now. It's such a big nut.
And from what I understand from the Ontario Liberals, that when they started talking about the ORPP, they said that unless the CPP is enhanced, we'll start an Ontario here in the main Ontario program. So if and when the NDP forms government and we make those improvements to CPP, we'll see what the Liberals do here in Ontario. Do they go ahead with the ORPP or not?
Because your provincial counterpart, Andrea Horwath, is not supportive of the ORPP.
No. Because,
Yeah, I think she understands the bigger picture too.
these improvements to the CPP and whatnot are one election away.
Yeah, exactly.
And not under the...
There you go. There you go. There's a big statement, folks. Believe your leader has also committed to a carbon tax, and so businesses are looking at it, and rightfully so.
Yep.
ORPP, carbon tax system here, hydro costs going through the roof. Now the federal NDP, Thomas Mulcair, wants to put a carbon tax on top of that again. Like, these things. Well, the business looks at it this way, Lauren. They look at it and say, this isn't based on profitability. These are just costs that I can't. If it's on profit, go ahead, because I'm not making any profit anyway.
Right.
But don't pile on these costs and expect me to drive the economy, because it can't happen.
Right.
Just can't happen.
No, and because I've been in retail, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
The fixed costs, the variable costs, management of labor, all the things.
So
that go with business.
how, if government's going to be, at all levels, and I know you largely don't. Well, you don't have anything to do with how the provincial governments operate, but are they going to be the senior level of government? You're going to be the senior level of government, regardless of what anybody says. Your job is to keep Canada competitive. Your job is to keep business in Canada competitive.
Right.
If all of these costs are piled on business, how are we going to do that?
And I think that's a perfect way of saying piled on. So I'm a big proponent of consensus building and working with municipal leaders, provincial leaders, and with our federal partners as well. And when you introduce something, you have to make sure that it's in concert with everybody else down the line. So we're not, adding here, adding here, and adding here, and it's duplication. So we will work with the provinces and here in Ontario and say, okay, so here's a cap and trade system that we were going to introduce. How does that affect you, and how can you become a partner in it? We look at jurisdictions around the world. Everybody
So rather than having,
And a level playing field, right?
let's,
Let's not layer on top.
yeah, let's do one thing together.
Let's feather it together.
Yeah.
That's right. So.
Well, that makes way more sense, no
That's right.
question.
And part of that discussion, I should mention the fact that I've gone out of my way and I've developed relationships with local municipal leaders, with city councilors, mayors, and provincial leaders as well. And so they know where I'm coming from. I'm not a top-down kind of guy. Let's put it on the table and let's talk about it. And we can have opposites,
Yeah.
opinions, but at the end of the day, that issue is still on the table.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I like that. The cost of government is getting out of control. We all know that. Nobody will argue that. 42% of our pay now goes to taxes. The broad public opinion is the NDP government is tax and spend type of
That's
government.
right.
That's the broad public opinion, or maybe not even the broad public. That's what hits the media forefront now and again. The NDP, the opinion is the NDP thinks we don't pay enough, we need to tax more. But I know that's not fact.
Okay.
However, in the last 50 years, household income's gone up 500%. Taxes have gone up 1,800%. You don't have to be a mathematician to put on a graph and figure out those two lines will meet some point in the future down the road. Our ability to feed government is going to compare less than what the government needs to spend. And it's getting out of control. So how would an NDP government control cost of government, mitigate waste, or eliminate waste? What controls or measures would the NDP government do to make sure we get the best out of our dollar?
And that's the bang for your buck, right? And so, like I mentioned earlier about, I don't know if I did it on camera, but the NDP actually has the best fiscal record. Department of Finance did that, fiscally responsible governments in provincial levels. And the NDP we had a little bit of an experiment here in Ontario, but Mr. Ray turned out to be a Liberal, so but it's in the mix.
Yeah.
And and I look back at the days of Tommy Douglas, where he had 17 balanced budgets and introduced universal Medicare. It's about choices. I mentioned earlier about the G20. Did we really need to spend $1 billion on that? I don't think so. And what amazes to me is there must have been somebody in the room when that was just, or maybe there wasn't. But if that decision was up and I was sitting in the room, I'd be raising my hand and saying, "Excuse me, that is not bang for
There must have been some eyebrows that went up.
Right, and it brings me to the affordable universal child care program that we want to roll out, and the numbers, and based out of the Quebec model, and for every dollar spent, you get about $1.70 back, right? So it's not only good social policy and gets predominantly women back into the workforce earlier, and I believe the last number I saw that the Quebec GDP went up 2%. After about 70,000 women came back in. And I say women because it's predominantly their decision making at that point, right? And it's funny because we were talking about too big to ignore small businesses. And I'm thinking to myself, so if you're a small business, or you and your wife want to start a business, and you want to start a family, what a decision that would be to make when you said, and say I live in an area that childcare costs about $1,800 a month. The boutique taxes breaks that the other two parties are offering, $160 a month really doesn't go anywhere towards that. So if you can find a childcare space, right? And I've talked to young ladies who were just couldn't find a place. They couldn't find a spot, so they had to stay home with the kids. Which that's great if you can do it. But they wanted to pursue a career. So look at it from a small business and a family-run business, and so. Your partner in your business has to make the decision and say, well, we've just had a child. I can't afford to work for the company that we're starting up because I can't afford the $1,500 to $2,000 of daycare. Now that person could, right? $15 a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Raise a family and still be able to do business.
No question. I love the way you twisted that to a small business owner.
I didn't twist it.
No, I know.
You know why?
No, but it's just as applicable there as it is to a person that works.
Exactly, and it's funny how we put labels and categorize and whatnot. We say small business. Well, small business, that's a family too.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Whether it's the employer, the employees.
For sure.
It's families. It's members of this community.
Yeah.
Right?
It's largely husband and wives that get together and kids that build their business. There's no question. No, I agree. Interesting. scandals. I want to talk about scandals because they're always fun.
Liberal or conservative?
Yeah, because you know what? From a federal perspective, there's never been an NDP government, so the only scandals in government have ever been conservative or liberal. And none of them can claim to be perfect. And let's get right down to it, no party can. You know, there's been scandals in every single party, and we need to understand that whether they're right or whether they're wrong, whether they've been challenged or have been unchallenged, there's always individuals that are looking for ways to play around the rules to some degree. The Senate, largely, we've got Wallen and Duffy and Brazeau in the news. Why? Well, I understand how politics is played. They're conservatives. There's an election. There's a conservative government in power. Why not? You know, that's the media's trying to sell papers, and that's fair. And it's fair because it was just bad timing for the conservatives to have this happen. However, they're senators. None of us out here really understood what the Senate does.
Or what it's supposed to do.
Or what it's supposed to do. Your leader says, let's get rid of it. The conservative government has said at one point they would favor abolishment. However, they said that can't be done, so let's go to the elected Senate model. Mr. Trudeau, however, has said, no, I love the Senate. The Senate's wonderful. It's an institution. It's our history. We need to reform it and make it work better and make the people work better. If you're going to get rid of it, Lauren, how are you going to do that?
Well, in 2011, I ran with Jack Layton, and he said, don't ever let them tell you it can't be done. And I mean, that's a famous saying by Jack, but he actually said it to me when we were talking about something in Vancouver. And if you look at the history of our country, every province and territory got rid of their second chamber. So if there's a will, and the people of Canada give us the mandate, we will find the way. And I'd be very interested.
So Thomas has said he'll do a referendum.
Well, I mean, and we have to talk to the provinces, right, and get them on board or see where they stand. And I'm very interested to see that argument from a provincial leader to say that we need to keep the Senate. And I'm going to take this scandals aside, okay, because I think the Senate has been perverted by Liberal and Conservative prime ministers for the last number of years for their own personal political gains. What did it for me was there was a bill passed in the House, authored by Jack Layton, about environmental reform. It passed the House, meaning all three, I don't know if Elizabeth May was in the House at the time, we'll say it, but it passed by all parties. So all the elected representatives of this country passed the bill. It went to the Senate, and they turned it down. So they're not elected. They're not accountable.
Oh, I know. I got a problem with that.
So why does the unelected, unaccountable members turn down a bill that was passed by elected representatives that you and I elected?
Yeah.
That is a fundamental problem.
There's no question about it. And so it should go.
And then let's add the scandal to it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know how you feel, but I really don't appreciate my taxes paying them to fly around the country to raise money for their own parties.
No, I think it's atrocious.
Really? And that's part of their mandate.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
but, you know,
wow.
unfortunately, or fortunately for them, they get to set the rules.
Yeah. You know what?
Nobody else can change the rules.
Did you hear about this one? And it just blew me away. You know the senators that are under suspension, right?
Yes.
Well, during the election, because the Senate's not sitting, they're not technically suspended, so now they're being paid again.
Oh, gosh.
And Mr. Harper extended their paycheck to 77 days.
Because of the long election. Interesting.
I mean, how that doesn't get just riled right up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's
got to go.
It's terrible. But anyway. Someday maybe we'll have that chance to do that. Electoral reform has long been an issue with the NDP. You favor proportional representation.
Absolutely.
That's your favorite model. We all know that, I think from my perspective, with a multi-party system. Actually, with proportional representation, I don't care where you put it, if you only had two parties, you're going to attract other parties at that point, and you're never going to have a majority government. You're going to have minority. I hate minority governments personally, only because I don't care who gets in as long as something gets done.
Right.
And I hate the stagnation of a minority government. However, all across Europe, they all have proportional representation. They all learn to get along, and they all, pick their fights and their battles, but pick their friends
Build
as well.
consensus and
build
actually get
consensus.
things done.
Yes,
Yeah.
and actually, because they know they have to get things done.
That's right.
If the NDP on October the 19th were elected to a majority government, you still in favor of proportional representation?
Absolutely.
Because you'd lose your minority.
We're not doing
majority.
We're not doing this because we somehow get some gain.
I know.
We don't introduce the Fair Elections Act and try and get some gains out of it, which is pretty obvious what the Conservatives have done. No, we're proposing because it's the right thing to do. And there was one election, and I use this example because, obviously I'm an NDPer. The Greens had 1 million votes. They got 1 seat.
Yeah.
That's not right. That is just fundamentally, that's not right. And we can talk about percentages, whether it's a mandate, 40% of the or 30% of the people that actually voted, and that,
Yeah. I hate that
and first
stuff.
past the post stuff.
I hate that when a leader, I don't care what party, whether I supported them or didn't support them, when they stand up at the end of the day and they say, I've been given a mandate by the people. No, you haven't been given a mandate because you didn't get 51% of the vote. And it bothers me.
Right.
There's no question about it, that bothers me. But
there is a way to do it to make sure that all the regions of the country are represented
Yep.
in a fair, equitable way.
Yep.
But like I said, and I always put it down to the simplest terms. When a party gets 1 million votes and only gets 1 seat, something fundamentally is flawed.
I think what you have to do, though, and I've had a lot of conversations about this, but I think what you have to do is you really have to move away from the British parliamentary system, and you have to say, we can't have a government fall just because they had a bill not passed in the House or there's a non-confidence vote. You got to take that non-confidence issue right out and pertain it to illegal activity as opposed to a simple bill before the House. Because what we want is stability in elections and electoral reform. So every 4 years, that's great. We'll go to the polls and we'll elect. But whoever you are, you better get along for 4 years and make some decisions.
Right, but I have seen a minority government work very well. And here in Canada, we have a very good example. That's how Medicare.
Yep, Pearson.
Yeah.
Pearson government.
Was in a minority situation. And I'd also like to see a return to actual government when they present a bill, and it's one election away. I'll say it again, that we don't introduce the omnibus bill of 800 pages with things layered. Here's our budget. Okay, so it's economics. And then you start finding all this other stuff that's in there. And then you limit debate. And so the committee still can't do the committee work that's so important and say, let's tweak this, let's tweak that.
No question about
it. And the worst part about that, and it gets me going. I've seen somebody stand up and out and say, well, you voted against this, this, and this. Well, it was part of an omnibus bill of 800 pages. So I say me, the person said, well, I couldn't vote for the entire thing. And you're cherry picking out of it and saying, well, you weren't against, public safety or whatever the issue was.
Yeah.
Right? It's used for that.
The Americans are famous for doing that too.
What do they call it? Pork barrel? Yeah.
Their bills are hilarious because most of the things inside the bill don't even pertain to the original.
You don't even recognize it. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
So unfortunately, the Conservatives have definitely gone down that road.
Well, I think
Mr. Harper,
electoral reform, would be really interesting, and I think every party should be. The first past the post is, it's.
Which group talks to me a lot about that? Is students, the 19 to 24-year-old. I'm very blessed. I got 6 or 7 students that are part of my team, and they're either in university or college or recently graduated. And it's one of the issues they bring up a lot.
Yeah, because they want their vote to count.
Absolutely.
And a lot of them want to vote for fringe parties, because they have a special interest. And despite nothing wrong with it.
Despite what people think about or hear about that generation, they are motivated and they are involved.
Yeah.
They may not vote statistically, but they're involved in community groups. And,
for sure.
And it's amazing energy that's part of the team.
They've certainly got an opinion.
Yep.
Finally, our campaign, as you know, is Small Business Too Big to Ignore. It's
brilliant.
Great.
I like this.
I know, I love it too. 98.2% of all employer businesses in Canada are under 100 employees. 2/3 of Canadians work for small businesses. They're locally owned. You know someone who owns a small business. You shop and buy from small businesses every single day, and so does your family. Without them, our entire economy collapses. There's no question about it. We think it's singly the most important element of our economy. Small, medium, and large, every single business, what government seems to fail to understand, and you're not the elected official now, so I'm telling you now before you get there.
And you'll remind me after.
And I'll remind you after regularly. But every single penny that government has to spend, or you and I have to spend, comes from a business transaction. It's the only way money comes. Government prints it, but they don't make it.
Correct.
So, we think it's critically important that a business activity escalate and that we build a strong economy. What will an NDP government do, either through grant programs, tax reductions, red tape, and other burdens to help business, and in particular, our small businesses?
You're absolutely right, and we've been saying it all along. When you hear the term job creators, it's the small and medium-sized businesses that really are. And unfortunately, we've seen a policy where, the corporate tax rate is set at a certain level to be competitive globally and in North America, but it doesn't necessarily benefit the smaller and medium-sized business, right? Billions of dollars have gone to these huge corporations. And when I say those huge corporations, I'm talking about the banks, the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies. They're doing quite well. I wasn't even going to talk about the energy sector and those subsidies, but you're absolutely right. And we've got released platform already, and a lot more stuff is still to come. We're at day minus 50. There's still a month and a half to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you'll see a lot more and more detailed costs and whatnot. But we've talked about the innovation tax credit, introduced that. And I was just, and you've probably heard about the tax rate going from 11 back to 9.
To 9, yeah.
And I say we because I'm part of the party, but I wasn't in the House at the time, but the NDP introduced legislation to do such a thing a few months ago. And we proposed from 11 to 9. And Conservatives voted against it. So a couple months later, they introduced their budget, and lo and behold, 11 to 9. So, we're flattered that they took the policy. Good policy is good policy.
I was in the House for the budget.
Were you?
I actually saw the chatter across the Conservatives pointing at the NDP saying, you got to support the budget now because that's your policy.
But unfortunately, the difference was that their 11 to 9% doesn't take into effect for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know how they push everything back, where they have been in the last few elections, that they say, well, we're going to do this in the future. We're committed to doing it now.
Good.
Right, and so it should add up to, I believe, 20% reduction overall for
That helps small business.
Oh, and you got to do it now.
Everything like that helps small business.
And we were talking about the precariousness of the economy, right? You can't wait to do these kind of things. You can't say down the road.
No, for sure.
You make the decisions, you find a way to do it, and don't let them tell you.
Get it done.
Exactly.
Get her done.
Get her done.
Lauren Bruce, it's been a lot of fun. I want to give you an opportunity to speak directly to the constituents of Kitchener South Hespeler. Tell them why they should vote for you on October the 19th or earlier.
Or earlier, because we were talking about that as well. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully, the people in Kitchener South Hespeler realize the boundaries have changed. I've talked to a lot of people saying, "Well, where am I now? Am I here? Am I here?" And I get a sign request from another campaign because somebody's called into their office and said, "Oh no, now you're in Kitchener South Hespeler." We have an opportunity to make history here, and not only electoral history in the country to elect a truly progressive government, but also here locally. There's no incumbent because it's a brand new riding, so it's wide open. And I'm applying for the job to become your member of parliament. Please join our team. My office is in Hespeler, right downtown. Come on by, and we'll chat anytime. Thanks very much, sir.
Lauren Bruce, the NDP candidate for Kitchener South Hespeler. Good luck, my man.
Thank you.
Have fun and wear out a few more pairs of shoes.
Absolutely. Probably shirts in this weather, too.
Good luck on the 19th.
Thank you, sir.